Good morning and welcome to the live Q&A session. Today covering lesson 6b and any common problems you might have had from today's lesson. But if you've got any questions about any of the lessons, then please ask them in the chat on this video and I'll answer them as we go. I'll just check if there's any so far. No, nothing yet. So please ask any questions you've got. Let me go over some common problems then. So first of all, to find our code. So when you open your game the next time, you might find it tricky to find your code. What you need to do is go down to the bottom right-hand corner, click on backdrops, and then you'll find this area here. If you scroll down, there we go, that's where all our code blocks are that we've created today. Remember, you've also got these options up here. If you click on this one, it gives you a bigger code area. Makes this very small, but when we're adding so much code, that's quite handy. So the first thing you might have an issue with is finding those clone blocks. If we click on control, I don't think it's immediately obvious where they are, so I just wanted to make sure you could find them. They're in the control section, and then if you scroll down to the bottom of the control section, we have here create clone of Hedgehog. So we can click and drag that in. If we wanted to create a clone of the Hedgehog, we don't in this game, so we created lots of other clones and you can just use the drop down to find those. So when you found those and added all your code, hopefully your game works. Make sure you try it out. Let's have a look and see what might happen. So something that might happen is that you go through to your next garden, sorry. So if my hedgehog goes through to the next garden, I'll just eat some of these worms and things. I think the badger's handled most of the beetles there. And you can see nothing's come back. So make sure you've checked your code. Let's go back to our code and see if we can fix that. You might have noticed what I did. So make sure the drop down here, so when backdrop switches to new garden 1, so this is the section of code for new garden 1. This is my second block of code that we copied, didn't we? So when you copy it, make sure you change the drop down to your second garden. Mine's garden 2, yours might be garden 3, garden 8, who knows what you downloaded. So make sure you've changed that to the garden that you've got in your game. Great, so we've covered that. One thing you might also find is something that happened in my game in that video was that your sprites don't hide. So you need to make sure you have this one, the broadcast hide sprites, as the first thing that happens after you switch backdrop. That will make everything hide and then you can bring back as many things as you want. So in the first garden you can see I haven't got the hog house. So that will make the hog house hide and it will make sure it won't come back. Whereas in the second garden, I have got a hog house because that's where I want my hog house. You can do the same with the netting. So I've done the netting the other way around. I've done the netting in the first garden and not in the second garden. So you can see 0 netting here. So those should hopefully make it all work and all the sprites go away and the requisite number come back again. But you might still have an issue, so let's check that out. If I change this to, let's go for 3 shallow ponds. So in theory that should make 3 shallow ponds in the first garden. Let's click the green flag. You can see I've only got 1 shallow pond here, or so it appears. Actually, I've got 3 shallow ponds, but they're all in the same place. If we look at the code in here, there's nothing to put the pond in different places, is there? So all 3 ponds are actually in the same place. We can fix that, so if you do want to have more ponds, and the same thing would apply for the netting and the deep hole, and the hog house, but it's unlikely you want more of those, then you need to add a code block. So let's look at the worm one. This is what we need to add. When I start as a clone, go to X random coordinates and Y random coordinates. So this would make the pond or whatever you're talking about appear in a random position. And if you want to, you can just copy that using the backpack. Click on the backpack and it opens. Grab the code you want to copy, put it in the backpack and let go. That makes a copy of it in the backpack. Then we go back to our shallow pond, or whatever it is that you want to make more of and it's not working. Get the code, drag it into the script area. And if I right click, it looks a bit messy at the moment. Clean up blocks. There we go. You can see you've got that one there. Great. So now let's click the green flag, and there we go. You can see I've got ponds everywhere. You may not find that works for you. You might not like them appearing in random positions. You might find it's good. So experiment a bit and see what works for you. So you can do the same in the netting sprite, add a random block in there, and the deep hole one. Otherwise, those ones, if you change the numbers in this backdrop code that we've made, if you change them in here for the netting and the deep hole, they won't appear in random positions, they'll all appear in the same position. So make sure you do that if you amend your code in that way. Great, I think we've covered the common problems. I think the other thing you need to be aware of is just making sure you're really diligent going through the code. Make use of this right click and clean up blocks function, because then all your code lines up in a nice line. And you can easily spot, you can easily see whether you've got any of these blocks left. So you might have when flag clicked ones. So this is the badger sprite. And I know that we shouldn't have any when flag clicked ones. So I can just scroll down and see when I started the clone, when I started the clone. So they're all looking good. So the key to this part of the lesson is just being diligent, going through and making sure you do it step by step to make sure you've got all those covered. And if one sprite isn't working, have a look at the code and see what you've done. Great. I also suggested you could share your projects. I'd love to see your projects and what you've done. I've already shared this one. If you haven't shared yours, you'll have an orange button at the top here saying share. So click on that share button, and then you'll have to put in some information about how to play your game. And then once you have shared it, you can copy this link at the top here. So do copy and paste on that link and email it to us. On our website, it will tell you how to do that. So let's go to earthgames.uk and have a look at a few things on the website. So share your game. Go to learn and share your game on earthgames.uk. And here's our email address. So do send us your games. We'd love to see what you've done and see what things different to ours you've added. I'm sure you've had some really imaginative ideas. It also says here the best 3 games will receive a prize. So do send us your games. The other thing I mentioned at the end of that lesson was that we are running a competition. Let me show you some information about that. So that's on our website, earthgames.uk. And you have to make it about 3 different insects. So it's an insect competition. It's done in conjunction with some charities related to insects. So the deadline is the 31st of July. And you can make a board game, but the one you're probably interested in is scratch games. And here's what you have to make it about. It has to be hoverflies, dung beetles, or mayflies. And you've learnt some awesome skills making that hedgehog game. So if you made a game like this, you could well be in with a chance of winning the prizes. Let's have a quick look at those. So if you're in the UK, then the prizes can be trail cams, a grow your own ant's nest, microscopes. There's all sorts of things. So do have a look. If you're not in the UK, then you can still enter and you'll get an Amazon voucher. So now that you've learned all these skills in the hedgehog game, use your skills to go further, see what else you can create. I also said you could add other things to your game from our other games. Let's make sure you can find those. So if you go into the main Scratch page and type Hedgehog Republic and press enter, click on Studios, Hedgehog Republic. Here we are. Now this is the sprites game. That's the one that has additional gardens in. So if you're looking for a couple of additional gardens, they'll be in there. And you need to add them in the same way that we added the other gardens. If you're looking for additional sprites that you want to use, the combined hedgehog project at the bottom here is the one you're looking for. So that one has dogs in as well. You might want to look at the pesticide and how that works in the game and add that to your game. So there's lots of different hazards you could add. It also has a mummy and baby hedgehogs, so that might be something you're interested in adding. Have a look at that one and see if you can figure out how it works. If you're not getting the cloning, then it might be worth having a look at this game called Beetle Cloning, which explains more how the cloning works. It's very simple code, just so you can have a play with that. You could remix it and have a go to see if you can understand better how it works. Remember, on our website we have got the resources to find the lessons. So if you go to online resources, and this is lesson 6B. So this opens a presentation which gives you all the instructions you need to make the game. So here it explains about cloning. We've also got a video here about cloning, and on the Scratch website there's also more information about cloning. So do have a look at that to help you understand it more. I think that's all we're going to cover today. I really would like to see your games, so do let us know what you've made. Send your links through the website, earthgames.uk, and let us see. It would be fantastic. And also have a look at that competition. It would be great if you could enter it, because you've got some great skills and might be in with winning some of those prizes. Thank you for your time, and let us know how you found the game in the comments on the side. Bye. I can see we've just had a question come in, so actually I'll carry on talking. We've had a question from Lorcan who wants to ask how to stop the sprites reappearing if he goes back into the first garden. Actually, that's something that's a problem in the full game too, and it's a way people can cheat. So it's a good question, Lorcan, well spotted. Let's have a look at this game. So if we play this game, you can see that it's also a problem there. It's just loading. It's got a lot more blocks in there, so it takes a while to load. So what Lorcan's asking about, in case you haven't seen that, is if you go through to the next garden. So I've eaten one beetle. I'll eat that other one too, just to make it all empty in this garden. So in theory, if I go through to the next one and then come back again, there shouldn't be any beetles there. But what happens is that they do reappear again. And that one's quite tricky to fix without getting into some complicated coding. What I'd suggest is that perhaps you could use variables and count how many times you've been in that garden. And if you've been in once, then don't run that code again. But that's quite tricky code. So you could add a block to say if the garden count is less than 1 or is equal to 1, then run that code, the cloning blocks. If it's more than 1, so if it's the second time they visited that garden, then don't run those cloning blocks. I think that's probably the way I'd do it. There's probably lots of other ways to do it too. I'll have a think and see if I can think of anything else and add it to the lesson instructions on here. So I'll add it to the finished game bit at the end there if I can think of anything else. I think that's how I'd do it. There might be an easier way. I'll have a think about it, Lorcan, and let you know, okay? Any other questions? No, nothing else at the moment. Well, thank you, Lorcan, for your question. I hope that's helped. If there's anything else, do send it through the website. Remember, there's an Ask an Expert link on the website.